Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's tourism lesson. My name is Evans Maponi. This lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saipono Discovery Center. The topic for today is tour plans and route planning. Tour plans and route planning are appearing in our national question paper in section B, and it's question 2. You'll also further be assessed on this topic in a control test. You'll also find it on your skills assessment task, in the PET, in the preliminary examination, and the final examination. What do you need to know as a grade 12 tourism learner? You need to know the tour itinerary, the concepts that goes along with it are itinerary, logical tour planning, scheduled tours, and coupled with that, you'll find the factors that need to be considered when planning an itinerary. You'll also be required to know the different types of itineraries. And lastly, you'll be expected to write an itinerary on your own. The key concepts for this topic are development of tour plans to suit specific tourist profiles within the available budget and time. You are also expected to have an understanding of route planning. Now, let's start unpacking the topic. Remember, our topic is tour plans and route planning. Now, the big question is, what is a tour plan? A tour plan can be explained as a summary of a holiday planned for a tourist. A tour plan is a summary of a holiday that you would plan for a tourist. A tour plan is drawn up using a tourist profile. You have studied this in grade 10, where you develop a profile of a tourist, where you included information such as the name, the nationality, the contact details, the gender. So that profile repeats itself in grade 12 when you do tour planning. So we need to know, or we need to establish the type of tourist in question. This will enable a tour planner to ensure an enjoyable experience for a tourist. So if you know someone's profile, if you know the kind of person you are planning a tour for, it becomes much easier for you to plan activities around the needs and expectations of that tourist. So the tourist profile is important when you develop a tour plan for a tourist. So please bear in mind always. As we continue in explaining a tour plan, one could also say it is an outline. Remember, firstly we said it's a summary. Now, it is an outline of a proposed travel plan for a tourist based on tourist profile, budget, and time they have available to travel. The key words for you are a tour plan. Number one, it's a travel plan. It is based on tourist profile and it takes into consideration the aspects of budget and that of time available. So those are your keywords in the definition of a tour plan. It also includes a general overview of the services that will be used and in order in order in which places will be visited. So the order of places, the order of attractions or destinations that will be visited, it's also critical. It's also important for you to understand which ones you would expect your tourists to visit in the morning, in the afternoon. So that order plays a very critical role when designing or developing a tour plan. A tour plan we also have explained the concept of itinerary when we looked at the key concepts to be studied. So a tour plan and an itinerary goes hand in glove. So the basic itinerary includes the following. One, there must be dates. There has to be a transport to move your tourist around. There has to be accommodation. Remember, with tourism, if we say you have toured around, you must have slept over. You must have at least spent 24 hours. So the need for accommodation can be ignored. Sightseeing arrangements. So here it speaks to the bookings. You don't just wake up and visit places. You need to first do arrangements as to the time available, as to the cost, the entrance fees for various activities within those attractions. And lastly, the attractions visited on daily basis. So all these elements formulate an itinerary. So an itinerary will not be an itinerary in the absence of these aspects that we have just looked at. An itinerary must further indicate the following aspects: places of interest and attractions to be visited, the leisure time, the dates of the tour, health and safety precautions, travel documentations, depending on where you're visiting, as well as the cost for the tour. So all these elements must be available in a good tour that has been pre-arranged. So for your pre-arrangements, you'll need to consider all these factors that we have mentioned. As we further move with our tour plan, you also need to include in your planning, the route of the tour that will follow, the departure, where the tour starts, and the destination that is where the tour ends. The length of stay, it's also crucial in developing a tour plan as to how many days you are going to spend in the tour. The mode of transport, the type of transport you are going to use, whether you need to travel by road, by air, depending on the time that you have. If you need an urgent movement, then the most fastest would be an air transport. But if you have adequate time to explore on your way to different destinations, you can either travel by rail or by road, or you may also use water transport. The type of accommodation. There are different kinds of accommodation, ranging from cheap ones to the most luxurious and expensive ones. So depending on the budget, depending on your finances, you'll be able to choose the kind of accommodation. And the other aspect that is more important is the aspect of meals, whether included in the accommodation or excluded, so that you can be able to budget for your tour or for your trip. Now, I want us to look at the important element of tour planning, which revolves around the tourist profile. The tourist profile explains the kind of tourist you are preparing the tour for. So in the tourist profile, you'll find, as indicated on the example, the name of the tourist. In this regard, we have Mr. John Brown. As we further explain Mr. John Brown's profile as our tourist in question, we need to look at his nationality as to where he's coming from. And in the case of Mr. John Brown, he comes from Australia. So his nationality is an Australian. So a person whose nationality is South Africa would be referred to as a South African. Another important element of the tourist profile is the age. The age determines the kind of activities that you'll book for the tourist. It also guides you towards selecting the type of accommodation and transport. So in the case of Mr. Brown, his age is 24. He is 24 years old. So this gives you an indication of the type of accommodation, the type of transport, the type of meals, let me say food and beverages that will book for Mr. Brown. The contact details further explains his profile and his detail as given in the example. He resides at 2 Boundary Road, Beach, Sydney. And you may think of his contact details. Another important aspect of the tourist profile is the occupation. So Mr. Brown's occupation is a sport science consultant. The occupation, it's important because it gives you an idea as to the type of tour that you can plan for Mr. Brown, whether he can afford or not. So occupation forms a critical aspect of the tourist profile. The needs and preference. So with needs and preferences, that's where you look at the type of accommodation suitable for Mr. Brown, who is our tourist here, as to whether he's involved in sports. An example here, watch local rugby. So if his trip, it's a host for various sporting activities, you'll be able to match the tour to the kind of person Mr. Brown is or your tourist is. Needs and preferences also include photography. As you move around attractions, whether the tourist will need to have a session where he will take photos as memorabilia to remember that at some point he has visited a particular destination or attraction. The food, the type of food that Mr. Brown would like to enjoy, whether he would like, he's a vegetarian, whether you like junk food sold in most of our townships, the kota, the malamogodu, inyama yenhloko. Those are the type of food that you'd associate this tourist profile with. So a variety of food and beverages, especially those which are better known, those which are like in our country are known for, where you'd want international tourists to take. So as you draw a profile, as you draw your tour plan, you must take the food or the kind of food that are on offer or that you'd like your tourist to taste or to enjoy. Tourists also have specific requirements. So as you draw a tourist profile, rather a tour plan, please look at the specific requirement that a tourist may have. So a tourist specific requirements will answer the questions of the choice of transport and that of diet. So transport will include various modes, And you must remember, no transport mode is better than the other, depending on the preference. So with transport, you are able to establish whether this type of tourist would like to use a bus for journeys between cities, a minibus taxi in and around towns, and air transport more especially for long trips. The diet, I think when we explained the needs and preferences, we touched on dietary, the type of food. And some of the tourists, you may find that they are on medication and they are only allowed to eat certain kinds of food. Some of your tourists, because of their religion, they are confined to eating some type of food only. We'll further unpack all these aspects of the tourist profile as we move further. Grade 12's another important aspect of the tourist profile is that of budget. Budget, you'll talk of affordability. So in the case of Mr. John Brown, his budget is between low and middle. It's low to middle. And the duration of the tour covers 10 days from the 15th of December to the 25th of December. I know you have dealt with this aspects of tourist profile in grade 10, but I just want to refresh your memories as it is key for your better understanding of tour plans and route planning. So the point of departure for your planning, the starting point for tour planning and route planning, it is the tourist profile. So in the next slides, I'm going to spend more time on explaining further the profile of a tourist, such that by the end of discussing this tourist profile aspect, you find it very easy for you to draw and develop your own tour plan. You are in a position to construct your own itineraries. So you'll get to know how important the tourist profile is key towards understanding the topic of tour plans and route planning. The tourist profile must have the name of the tourist. I think we have explained on that one. The name of the group, because you may at some point be asked to do group tourism or touring. So you'll have to give the name of the group. You also have to include special interest, the needs and preferences, specific requirements, the duration of the tour, the time available, time of the year, whether is it during Easter vacations, is it in December, the festive seasons, or during the year, the off-peak season, where the tour is cheap. All this, depending on the budget of the tourist, you are able to plan. Peak and low seasons, I've alluded to that. The available budget, we spoke about it. In the tourist profile, you should also include the next of kin. The next of kin, in case there are any eventualities during the tour, you'll be able to contact um, their next of kins or their relatives. The preferred type of accommodation, the tourist profile will have to include that. The type and grade, whether it's a hostel, whether it's a guest house, a one-star hotel, depending on the tourist budget, you are able to book the relevant accommodation for your tourist. The next aspect we have alluded to is the issue of nationality. The question of age also comes in because you with age, you are able to determine the activities that are relevant for that tourist. The activities for young people may not be the same as activities for old people. The issue of gender also comes in the tourist profile. It guides you when planning the activities for the tourist. It also guides you on accommodation and many other aspects. The residential address and the contact details, the occupations, and whether the tourist is able to drive, it's in possession of a driver's license, and also if he or she qualifies for an international driver's permit, IDP. So all those aspects need to be considered because with a driver's license, you may find upon reaching at the destination, the tourist will need to rent a car. All those car rental businesses may also offer you a driver, but those are the aspects that you need to establish so that you present your tourist with a tour plan that is cost effective, that meets the needs of that specific tourist. So I'm going to unpack all the concepts of the tourist profile, one after the other, as mentioned in the earlier slide. Now, a tourist profile. The slide here depicts the profile. If it's an individual, then we'll speak of one tourist. And as we have learned from the tourist profile earlier on, that of Mr. Brown, it's just a tourist. So you'll be planning for one person. You'll be planning for an individual. You can also plan a tour for a couple or a group of couples, and the full names takes precedence. You need to start by providing the name of your tourist. So if it's a group, you need to have a list of all their names. The second aspect of the tourist profile that is also key is that we must establish the nationality of our tourists. Right. As people from different nationals, we have different kinds of behavior. So a person who is from China may not behave the same as a person uh, arising from the United States of America or Brazil. We arise from different cultures, and we have our own likes and dislikes, preferences in terms of our beliefs. So for you to be able to cater for that, it's important to acclimatize yourself with the nationality of the tourist, where the tourist is coming from, so that you learn their culture and be in a position to tailor make your tour plan to suit his needs, his behavior, his culture, and many other preferences, his likes and dislikes. Another aspect for a tourist profile, it's a combination of age and gender. Some activities are only meant for young people, for active tourists. Older people taking part in extreme activities are very rare. Gender is often an issue when booking accommodation for groups. So that's where all the aspect of gender and age comes in. So you cannot have elderly people allocated activities for young tourists. Another aspect of a tourist profile that we've mentioned that we need to elaborate on is the residential address and contact numbers. The country of origin and destination, the physical and postal address, the landline and cell number, the email address, and the banking details. So all this personal information enable you to know better the type of tourist you are planning for or you are developing a tour plan for. So with this kind of information, you are able to plan efficiently for your tourist. Another key aspect of the tourist profile is the occupation. So from the slide here, it gives you an indication of available budget and lifestyle. So the occupation will determine as to the expenses that will be or that goes with the type of tour that you are planning for your tourist. Also, the occupation determines the life style. Whether this person needs a high class kind of tour or just a basic ordinary tour. So the occupation gives you that indication. Although some tourists can plan 5 or more years ahead of their trip and save as much as they can. So it depends. But the tour, the occupation will also help you in giving an indication as to the type of tour that you are developing. One more aspect of the tourist profile is whether the tourist is in a position to drive. As you may find, you may find that for him to move around between attractions, the transport is needed, and they might need services of a car rental. So whether a tourist has included this detail in his profile will give you an indication whether you will be a driver or a co-driver, depending on the type of tour that you're playing. If needs be, arrangements for international driver's permit, the IDP, to drive in a foreign country is a necessity, depending on the kind of tour that you are. If it's an international one, it's better to have this kind of information so that you plan ahead and do the necessary arrangements and applications for the IDP, International Driver's Permit. A special interest also plays an important role in the tourist profile, because here you need activities that will suit your profile, your tourist. So example given in this slide would be whether a tourist is that kind of a tourist who is interested in bird watching, is that kind of person who is interested in trekking, wildlife, or is interested in watching the beauty of nature. So you need to establish what interests the most your type of tourist. As we move further, we have mentioned in our concepts the needs and preferences. You must create your tour plan in a manner that the needs and preferences of the tourist are catered for. Some tourists will prefer a 5-star accommodation, whilst to some of the tourists, the issue of an accommodation doesn't matter. And some of the needs and preferences include: is there a need to hire a car to drive around in a specific destination or not? Whether your tourists prefer twin beds and not a double bed, that is for you to establish from the tourist profile. Is there a need for a tour guide or a translator? You need to keep yourself abreast with such kind of information. You need to search around as the preferences of your tourists. Whether or not they prefer European or African food or whatever, depending on their preferences. Preferred accommodation. The slide here portrays different kinds of accommodation. As you can see, the first one on your left, it is a camp, and it's a campsite. They are using tents. The tourist profile will tell you if there is a need for this kind of accommodation. The twin beds The one will sleep on top and another one in the bottom. The bed and breakfast, the guest house. So there are many more other forms of accommodations that a tourist can choose from. And as you develop a profile, a tourist profile, you need to take that into consideration, the preferred accommodation. Specific requirements in respect of the food that the tourist would like to eat. So some people are vegetarians. Some they would need halal food. Some would prefer kosher. And as we look at specific, it touches on the issue of transport. Some would like to fly between cities and transfer to and from the airports. So you must look at those specific tourist requirements and tailor-make your tour plan in accordance with the specific requirements of the tour. The duration of the tour. From the tourist profile, it must be indicated whether they are taking on a long or extensive trip, or it's just a short breakaway. Is it a business trip or a romantic honeymoon? So that or those aspects will give you the duration of the trip. So for a long, extensive trip, the duration might be longer because before one explore around, there are a few days that you need to rest, to take a rest, because he might be fatigued because of the tiredness or the long time that was spent on the flight. Will lead him to adjust himself before moving and exploring different attractions of his destination. Short breakaways, as the name indicates, it's just for a short spell of time. You are not going your tourists are not going to stay long. Business trip, strictly for business, and depending on what he has traveled for, it can be long, it can be short. If there are any of the skills he's going to learn, it might take for some time. Romantic honeymoon, it wouldn't take such a long period of time as well. But it depends also on the budget. Time of the year. The season of the year, it's also crucial when developing a tour plan. Is it during school holidays? Is it peak season? Is it mid-season or low season? So during school holidays, you look into aspects such as most of the destinations, most of the activities are crowded during school holidays because everyone it's moving, it's at rest, it's moving around on holidays. So If for a reserved type of tourist, you may not prefer this time of the year where the schools or school learners are on holidays. Peak season, peak seasons normally are expensive. So depending on your budget, uh, everything is up from accommodation, food and beverages, because during this time, uh, the industry, the tourism industry, they take it, everyone has money. Peak seasons, we are looking at December holidays, where employees were afforded bonuses and stuff like that. So everyone has money during this season. And the disadvantage of touring during this season is that um, all the commodities, all the goods and services that you need to buy are high in prices. The mid-season is not that bad as opposed to the peak season. Prices are slightly lower, but it is during the low season uh, where it's cheaper to travel because prices have been dropped. Uh, so the low season, mostly depending on the attractions that you would want to explore, is mostly in winter. Everyone wants to be indoors. Um, but for some attraction, winter months are perfect to explore. Like when we visit game reserve, the grass is shorter. You are able to have a perfect view of wildlife. Uh, included to this slide, it's a graph that indicates the travel trends during these seasons. Where it is high, it shows it's either during school holidays or peak season. Uh, and where it's low, I have just alluded to the low season and gave an example of winter months. And so the graph indicates the trend during the 4 seasons of the year. And you'll have high travel season, the peak seasons. It's around spring and summer. That's where you have a high volume of tourists in and around the attractions. Available budget. Mm, Spontaneous budget explorers, as uh, this is a group of people as indicated. Uh, they don't have a budget. Uh, as and when they get money, they decide on a travel. So their travel is not controlled by the savings or a total long planning. It just happens abruptly, whether they have money uh, or whenever they get money, then they decide on travel. The New Horizon families, the high life enthusiasts, the seasoned leisure seekers, the well-to-do Mzansi family, the wealthy people, the backpackers, Whether a trip is reliant on a set budget, the low cost accommodation, all this expresses the budget of a tourist. So you would have this kind of tourist. You'll have um, this kind of people as outlined in the tourism growth strategy 2012 to 2020. So all these aspects of a tourist are entailed in the tourism growth strategy. You must have studied this in grade 11. So this emphasizes on the importance of the FET band, where a foundation is laid in grade 10 and it's reinforced in grade 11 and 12. So whatever content you have studied is not something that you must forget. At some point, you will be referred to content studied in grade 10. So it's advisable to always refer to what you have studied before. The budget also determines whether you should travel during peak season, school holidays. These are more expensive as I've argued. The next of kin, in the mention of the concepts of the tourist profile, I have already alluded to the fact that the next of kin aspect is important because in the case of emergency, we should know exactly whom to contact. The name and full contact details of the person to contact should appear in the tourist profile. Grade 12 learners, I've said a lot with regard to tourist profile, and that was to emphasize the importance of a tourist profile. All these aspects are of essence when you draw the tour plan. Whatever aspect we talked about, starting from the name, the nationality, the preferences, and the needs are very important to consider when we are drawing up a tour plan for a tourist. The tourist profile will also categorize different types of tourists, which you have learned in grade 10. So subsequent to that, the types of tourist, whether this tourist is an educationist, whether this type of tourist it's religiously inclined, it's business, you name all the different types of tourists. They will help you a great deal when you prepare a tour plan. So a lot can be said, grade 12 learners, about the tourist profile. This is not the only information, but this is the key information that will help you better understand the tour plan and route planning as a topic under discussion. Examples of tour packages. Grade 12 learners, Uh, Tour packages or the types of tours that you can develop for your tourist. Number one would be an independent tour. So here you only uh, give the outline. The tourist will undertake this kind of tour independently. What he needs or what he requires from you, it's only the plan. And in explaining it, one would say an independent tour, it's a tour plan for an individual or a small group of people. The tourist has a choice of attractions and accommodation, etc. So the attractions and accommodation becomes solely the responsibility of the tourist. So you just give an outline of what can be enjoyed, uh, and the tourist will make informed choices from that tour plan. Another package that we have, it's an inclusive tour. This kind of a tour is planned by a travel agent and sold as a package. It is sold as one thing. The tourist here is not able to make any changes. The travel agents or the travel agent give you the package, and you may not amend or effect any changes to it. You have to follow what is given to you by the travel agent. Next would be an escorted tour. A tour provides a guide from the beginning to the end of the tour. So with an escorted one, as the name indicates, you are being guided. You are allocated someone who would give you guidance, would give an account of every activity that you indulge on during your tour. So this person leads your every move. And the last one is the business tour. The destination is determined by the company. Attractions and activities are added to make the trip more interesting. So as to where you want to go is the decision of the company, but you are being compensated whilst on business to explore and get involved in activities just to make your business trip more interesting. Factors to consider when planning a tour. The first one is the reason for travel. You cannot just travel without a reason. There must be something that pushes you to go on travel. So you don't just wake up and say, I want to go to Cape Town this morning. There must be something that compels you to take such a trip. You don't just wake up and say, I want to visit my relative in Durban. If you are a VFR tourist, visiting friends and relatives, mm, you must have a particular reason. I haven't seen my parents for so long. So during Easter vacations, I will visit uh, KwaZulu Natal just to see my parents. So there must be a reason for travel. Um, I've worked so much this year and I want to take a break. So for every travel arrangement, there must be a reason behind. Another factor is the profile of the tourist. We spoke much about the tourist profile and why is it important to consider it? It will ensure all the needs, the wants, and the preferences are taken care of. So knowing your tourist will help you to arrange for his needs, for his wants, for his or her preferences. So tourist profile is the underlying concept, is the most important aspect when you plan a tour. So that's where you come to meet the needs and wants as well as preferences of the tour. As we move further with the factors to be considered, most importantly, the available, it's a key factor. How much money is the tourist prepared to spend on his holiday? That sums up everything, period. So how much money is our tourist prepared to spend on such an undertaking? Is it enough? Is it inadequate? So this gives you various options to explore when planning a tour. The time. How long is the holiday going to be? It's somewhat related to the issue of budget, and it also determines how many attractions can be visited. So the budget and the time are closely related. So when you don't have enough money on your budget, then that will tell you how many attractions you will afford. And if you have enough budget for your tour, then you have a choice of as many attractions as you can. So our topic um, is divided into two. The first one deals specifically with tour plans, and the second aspect of the topic is that of route planning. The first one is tour plan, and we have fairly explained the tour plan in respect of the tourist profile, which plays a critical role in planning for a tour. Now, the second aspect of our topic is route planning. So route planning or a route plan is the choice of transport routes that a person will follow while on a tour. A route plan must be logical. A route plan should give one a sense. It must be logical. You cannot go front and back around the same area. There must be logic. It must follow some steps as you move around. A good route plan has many advantages. And those advantages is that it saves you time. If it is logical, uh, one of the benefits is that you will save time. A good route plan chooses the best possible route, not necessarily a shortcut, but the best possible route means is the route passable. You are able to drive on that route. You will not be confronted by muggers, and is it safe for you? So you need to choose the best possible route. That's how best one can explain it. It doesn't mean it must be short. It can be long, as long as it is movable and safe for a tourist. A good route plan also prevents the tourists from getting lost. So some of the routes that we pick, the GPS cannot access. So in that kind of a situation, you are at the risk of being robbed, of getting lost, because you'll stop and ask people around for directions. So if it's a good route, then you will not come across such hassles, such troubles on your way to your destination. It also helps you in making exact calculation of travel times. So if it's a good route plan, it becomes easier for you to calculate the travel time. That on such time, I'll be at Gold Reef City, and my next destination is the Constitution Hill. So I can spend so much time from Gold Reef City to the next destination. So I'm just but giving you an example to make the concept easier for you here. To say when you calculate time, you'd say this is my morning activity up to 11 o'clock, and I will drive from 11 to 13 hours for a lunch at the restaurant. So you give an account of whatever activity on your tour plan. So a good route will help you in coming up with exact calculation of time. In this slide and the next one, we'll differentiate between two types of routes. The circular route, this type of a route is generally used when a tourist needs to return to a point where the tour started. A circular route is used by tourists only when they want to return to their point of departure. So normally a circular route is an option. As indicated on the map, uh, as indicated on the map here, here is our circular route. So say maybe you want to start your trip here and you go down exploring the activities on this map. So here is your route and you get back to where you started. So it will start here and you'll travel around to where you started. And this is just but an example of a circular route. Mm, right. The next type is the linear route. As the name suggests, linear comes from line. You are moving on a straight line. And this type of route is used when a tourist moves away from where the tour starts. Yeah, you only move away from where you started and you are never to return. So it's indicated from this map in purple. The tour started somewhere here and it ends here. So this is an example of a linear route. And those are two basic types of route plans that you need to establish. A circular, you return to where it started, and with a linear, you move away from where the tour starts, from the point of departure. Transport. As indicated before, there is no one mode of transport that is best mode of transport. So depending on your needs and preferences, any transport facility on offer, it's a good mode of transport. Hence, I've indicated depending on your needs and preferences. The choice of transport is determined by the following factors. The first factor is budget, the available budget. How much do you have? How much can you afford? Some types of transport may be too expensive. I'm sure by now you know the example of transport that are expensive. The metro rail is not as expensive as the how train. Uh, a rail transport cannot be as expensive as air transport. Neither is the road transport as expensive as water or sea transport. So as you cruise on a ship, you'll pay a lot more as opposed when you drive on a road. When you fly on air, it will be more expensive than on the road. The next aspect that determines the choice of transport is the time available. If a person needs to get to a destination quickly, then that particular person will choose a plane. It is fast and can take you to your destination as fast as possible. The next concept is the concept of itinerary. With itinerary on this slide, it's a portrayal of some of the aspects that we've discussed into a plan that speaks to what is needed for us to develop an itinerary. You can see transport, you can see a map, you can see a passport, you can see a financial representation in the form of dollars. That is your budget. So these are some of the aspects that an itinerary or a good itinerary will require. You'll also need the time. Here are the main aspects of an itinerary. Number one is the time. The times here refer to the activities that are offered in an itinerary. Is it in the morning? Is it during the day or afternoon? Is it an evening or night activity? So this aspect needs to be there in an itinerary. One more aspect would be a description of transport, a description of accommodation, and a description of attraction. Description of stops for meals, logical planning and document requirements, order of activities, the tour sequence, the timing of attractions, unexpected interruptions, and the tour budget. All these aspects have to feature in a perfectly made itinerary. Times are not always included, but times of specific booking can be included. Duration of the tour, times needed to visit attractions and participating in activities, and time for leisure. Times are expressed as follows: from 8 to 9, for instance, it's breakfast. From 10 to 14 hours, a tour will visit the Voortrekker Monument. From 15 hours to 16 hours, the Kruger House. And from 17 hours, time at leisure. So time helps you in planning and making your activities as logical as possible. The description of transport, all details regarding transport options, booking reference, number and times of departure for each day, as outlined below. So here in this instance, the Ravos rail will be on use, and the date, it has been booked from the 1st to the 3rd of October 2014. I'm not trying in any way to take you aback. It's just but an example. The route It's N1, Cape Town to Pretoria. The reference number on your transport ticket would be N1B 6751. The departure time is 11 hours and the arrival time is 12 hours. And the type of suit is the royal suit, and the cost for that suit is 19,490 per person. So for using this transport over a period of 3 days, it's 19,490 for one person, per person sharing. So this is just but an example of description of transport that will be in use. And on this transport, can you see what is featured also is the issue of time. And on this transport, what is featured also is the aspect of a budget as to how much it costs. So it is those aspects that we have discussed that will frequently feature as we describe the type of transport we want to use. And here is the picture of transport. I'm not being biased here. A bus is commonly used. S is the train. S is the road transport in the form of a car. Description of accommodation. Accommodation bookings, including the name, the address, the contact numbers, and booking reference. The room request and outstanding amounts as well should be indicated when you describe an accommodation. For example, the name of the accommodation here is the Garden Court, Hatfield. The address is Corner Pretoria, St. Anne Street, and the postal address is P.O. Box 1450 Hatfield 0028, with the following contact numbers. The telephone at 012-342-1444, and the fax number is 012-342-3492, and another method of contact would be an email, which says hickcp Hatfield to southandsun.com, and the reference number for the booking is JC21-9/2030. That's how best you can describe accommodation. Description of transport, I'm sure we have discussed this one. We were on description of accommodation just a few seconds ago. And the picture here portrays accommodation. Description of attraction. Attractions to be visited that day should be outlined with their names, addresses, and contact details. Any booking reference number and outstanding amounts should be included as you describe to the tourist the type of attractions or type of facility that they will visit. For example, here we have the Voortrekker Monument, which is located just south of Pretoria in South Africa. This massive granite structure is predominantly located on a hilltop and was raised to commemorate the Voortrekkers who left the Cape Colony between 1835 and 1854. This is one of the historical attraction. It has captured the history of South Africa, and that is how it can be briefly explained to appeal for the type of tourist. The address here is mentioned. You have it at Ufes Road, Groenkloof, Pretoria 0027. The description of the height of the structure is 40 meters high, and it was opened in December 16, 1949. If you want to contact them, the phone numbers are here at 012-326-67770. The architect is Gerard Moerdijk. So such information is crucial for the tourist and appeals to the tourist to want to see this type of attraction. Excuse me. Description of stops for meals. Suggestions of where to stop for meals during the day should be made. So proposed places where tourists can feed should be mentioned. Where reservations were made, booking reference numbers, the name and addresses, contact details, and time of the restaurant must be given. Times of the restaurant must be given as to when it's open and when it closes. Long distances can be avoided by stopping in between for refreshments and meals. If you are taking on a long tour, so that you may not feel it, the stops in between for refreshments will help you deal easily with long distances. Examples of day-to-day itinerary. Here is another format. We have emphasized on the aspect of the date. The date here is given as the 15th of July 2024. The transport here in this itinerary, the tourist will use own vehicle. Accommodation is the Manhattan Hotel, and meals provided at Manhattan will be breakfast, lunch, and meals at leisure. And you have coffee shops at the museum. You'd have dinner, budget around 150 per person at Manhattan Hotel. So all those details appear here. The address of Manhattan Hotel is given here. It is in Visage Street, Pretoria, and can be contacted at 012-543-3456. The attractions and activities in the morning, you'll visit the Voortrekker Monument. In the afternoon, the Kruger House on Corner Church and Potgieter Street, and evening, you'll have your leisure time. Budget, it says in accommodation included. So whatever you are charged, the accommodation is included. That was just one, but the other format of an itinerary. So another example will be this one in a table form. Bear with me. The table is not given here, but I will draw the table like this. And here it's given day. You can express the day as day 1, or if the tour starts on the 15th of December, you'll just write 15, 12, and the year, and the morning activity, you'd say the morning you'll visit the apartheid museum, museum, and then the afternoon activity, you'll say tour around the city, and in this regard would be Johannesburg. The evening activity, you can have leisure activity and accommodation. You'd say Gold Reef City Hotel. So this is just but one other method of how you present an itinerary. Unlike the first one, where the information is not on the table. So here the information is arranged in a logical way. It describes the activities in the morning as heading, afternoon activity, evening, and accommodation. And as you might be aware, these are not all the aspects of itinerary. This is just but a summary of this itinerary, because it doesn't indicate here the stops and where you get your meals, the restaurant, and stuff like that. Yeah. Uh, and finally, uh, this as we further explore the day-to-day itinerary, you can see here what is included but not featured in that table. You have lunch and dinner, and the rates are indicated there. Um, at Monument, you would have an entrance fee of 50 Rand per person, and at the Kruger House, you'll have an entrance of 25 Rand per person, and evening at Leisure is 200 per person. So this is a breakdown of activities and the cost thereof. Grade 12 learners, um, this puts us to an end of a discussion of the topic, tour plans, and route planning. All these concepts that we have studied here revolves around the tourist profile, so that you match your plans, your tour plan, your route plans in respect of the type of tourist that you have. On that note, I would like to thank you all, and I hope you have been listening attentively, and you'll do all your best in this topic. Thank you.